Money FM 89.3, the best of the afternoon update.
They were once seen as the quiet workhorses behind our digital lives. Now, data centers are fast becoming one of the hottest assets on the market. From real estate developers and sovereign wealth funds to energy providers and pension managers, non-tech players are pouring billions into digital infrastructure. So, what's behind this investment surge and what does it mean for Asia's digital future? Joining me now is Jennifer Tay, PwC Asia Pacific Infrastructure Leader and PwC Singapore Partner. Now, she's been right in the thick of this shift, advising on some of the region's biggest infrastructure plays. Jennifer, great to have you here.
Hi, Lynlee.
Now, let's kick things off with the big picture. Why are we suddenly seeing property firms, asset managers, even power companies rushing into data infrastructure? What's changing?
Yeah, so Asia itself is experiencing a lot of demand for data center, mainly in the search for AI training, AI and cloud applications, and also some of the digital services that's coming up quickly in some of our emerging economies. So countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, India are all becoming data center hubs and growth centers. Mm-hmm. We are probably looking at about 12 gigawatts of data center capacity now in Asia Pac, and we're looking at it to be doubling in the next 3 to 4 years.
And it's not just passive capital anymore, right? Many of these firms are rolling up their sleeves and co-developing, even operating data centers themselves.
Yeah, and real estate firms has been taking quite a bit of advantage of their presence in a lot of markets. Data center play is a lot about finding the right pieces of land, strategic locations, and also power that is required to power the data centers. So real estate firms has been quite experienced given their legacy in the real estate development in terms of finding these resources.
Okay. Jennifer, if you could elaborate more on perhaps the joint venture models and infrastructure as strategy type of approach.
Yeah, so at the beginning of data center development, data center has always been seen as a separate asset class from renewable energy or energy supplied, right? And the synergies between the two is, if you think about data centers, one of the biggest bottleneck for a lot of data center development is power. And customers are not just looking for power. A lot of customers are looking at green power. So today, if you find a location suitable for data centers, you need to think about, okay, does it have green power? If not green power, can it even find sufficient and stable power supply? Now, data center developers started to look into collaboration with renewable energy and energy generation producer, because there is a lot of synergies between the two. One wants to develop renewable energy, and the other wants renewable energy to power their data center. So we are seeing more and more collaboration between the two as a result of that.
Okay. Now, backtrack a little. Was there a particular deal or moment that made you go, okay, this isn't just a tech sector play anymore?
Yeah, one of the clients that I've been working with in the renewable energy import into Singapore space, when we were working with them in terms of looking at importing renewable energy into Singapore, one of the key clients that we were talking to were data center players. So this group of clients become clients who have got a very large demand, and the demand being able to actually provide stable cash flow to a lot of these renewable energy developer. And, and that's the moment which, I can clearly see the synergies between the two different sectors.
Okay. Now, zooming into Asia, places like India, Malaysia, Indonesia, I think some of which you mentioned earlier, they're seeing a wave of digital infrastructure investment. What's making these markets stand out?
I would say, unlike Singapore, these markets have got abundance of land, and they also have got the ability to bring renewable energy to data centers much easier compared to Singapore. Now, they stand out in the ability for data center players to find big parcels of land required for especially AI training purposes, right? And Johor has been an interesting destination for a lot of data center players because of that. Seeing quite a lot of demand that has been built up in Johor in the last 6 months to a year. And for a lot of these new data center locations like Johor and many places in India, they are fast running out of power as well to power data centers. But the ability for them to tap into nearby, locations where they can build renewable energy and transmit it long distance into those cities will make them continue to be more interesting locations.
Okay, but would you say it's part of a global diversification strategy by the big infrastructure investors, or is it more of a local demand driving this?
I think there are two sides of the story, right? For one, the data center development in Asia Pac and Southeast Asia has been lagging behind a lot of the European countries and the US market, mainly because they moved into cloud type of facilities for corporates, whether it's storage of their customers' data or their internal computing power, has been slow in most markets. Now we're seeing more of that happening in recent years, which drives a lot of the data center demand. And therefore, when it comes to data centers that are really servicing this group of customers, it makes sense for them to be built close to the customers. So data centers that are servicing cloud clients, they have to be close to their customers.
Of course, yeah.
For the other group of data centers, which are more into sort of AI training purpose, these data centers are looking for cost-effective locations when it comes to power and land, which makes some of the Southeast Asian countries and locations attractive to start with.
Okay, we're also hearing about sovereign funds and greenfield campuses in this landscape. Any thoughts?
Yeah, so maybe with sovereign wealth funds, they are looking at data center as an infrastructure class as well. And the infrastructure class of assets where they can actually get very long-term cash flow, very yield play type of assets for them. So this type of infrastructure assets plays into the risk profile that sovereign wealth funds are looking for. So lower risk, long-term contract, stable cash flow type of asset class. So I see why sovereign wealth funds are interested in this asset class. And I've also been working with a lot of sovereign wealth funds looking at platforms developing data centers. And I think it's going to be one that we're going to see more and more coming up in the region. I always say data center has been built always as an afterthought to city development. So we develop the city, we build all the infrastructure, the basic infrastructure required to power a city, bring water and other resources, transport. And then the digital revolution happened and we decided to stick data centers into the city. Now, that's not really the most efficient way allocating land, power, and resources when it comes to city planning. This type of, design of campus or industrial parks is more efficient in terms of the usage of land, usage of power, and even water resources, which can be quite challenged in cities where water resources tend to be more scarce, like in many cities in India, for example.
Okay, so such greenfield projects, which involve constructing entirely new purpose-built facilities on previously undeveloped land, where are we seeing more of that happening? I think
when we look at Johor, I will expect more of these data center campuses to happen. We're already seeing that trend happening in India and the more developed markets like US and Europe.
Okay, so let's break down the ecosystem. Real estate firms, utilities, institutional capital, they all bring something unique, don't they? So how are these roles evolving?
Yeah, I would say similar to other infrastructure development, the upfront capital that is required in terms of capital investment into the data centers are huge, right? So you tend to have data center developers with the right track record, which can attract either investors, financial investors, whether it's getting a bank loan from the project finance banks or their equity investors to come in together with them. The track record of these experienced data center developers are very important in greenfield projects like that. Now then, as the data centers become more mature, when they have got long-term cash flow being contracted for, that's where you see the investors looking for lower risk and longer-term cash flow coming in to take over these data centers when they become operational.
Okay, speaking of which, this is something that's becoming a real deal maker or breaker these days, sustainability, as you mentioned. How are ESG goals shaping how data centers are being built and operated?
So a lot of data centers are still keeping this ESG goal in mind. So as far as possible, looking for renewable energy sources to power their data centers. The other thing that is happening as well is looking at the efficiency of the data center in terms of power consumption. So a lot of the power consumption within the data centers, besides running, the GPUs and everything, is actually in cooling.
I see.
So for advanced data centers, we're looking at 20 to 30% of the energy being used in cooling itself. So the cooling technology is one that also needs to evolve in order to make data centers more efficient and reduce power usage and help in terms of reaching those ESG decarbonization goals.
Okay. Jennifer, we've talked about growth, but what about saturation? With all this capital flowing in, is the market overheating or are we headed toward a wave of consolidation?
I think we will need to see how this plays out in the next couple of years. To be honest, there are a lot of data centers in the pipeline, some of which will start construction once they have got power supply. Some has got secured land but will not start construction until they see customer demand and power supply. So I think it will take a couple of years for this to play out before we see really what is the level of demand and supply going forward.
Okay. Jennifer, we've run out of time, but I just want to get this one in. One last big picture question. What should business leaders, regulators or investors be keeping their eye on in the next 12 to 18 months?
I think it's important to keep in mind that the search in data center requires not just the generation capacity, but also looking at connectivity. So I would say, for regulators to keep an eye on the grid infrastructure that is needed to connect the data centers, and also fiber optics network that is needed to connect data centers to data centers.
Okay, a sharp and timely reminder, I suppose. Thanks again for your insights, Jennifer. She is Jennifer Tay, PwC Asia Pacific Infrastructure Leader and PwC Singapore Partner. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynlee.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.